So the text is always saying, right inside your fear, right inside the terror is God that's listening to you.
We breathe in suffering rather than pushing it away. And in this case, it is all God. If you're willing to share some of your writing from the book, give people kind of a taste of like, what are these sutras? You talked about like, so many different feelings and emotions and access points into meditation, into kind of a yogic way of being, and that this text represents that. Perhaps you could share a bit.
The text is called Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And Vijnana is practical knowledge, worldly knowledge, skill, and discernment as contrasted with jnana, which is spiritual knowledge or knowledge of God. I let the richness of the language sing itself into English. And sometimes it's quite literal. So this is verse 49. So about a third of the way into the text. So hridaya is heart, and it also has a sense of an intoxicating drink made from honey. And there's an implication that it's a psychedelic beverage that both sweet and gives visions, and tender. And Neely, one of the meanings of it is alighting, like a bird alighting on a branch. So if you think about a light, that movement of a bird, like allow your attention to alight in the spaciousness of your heart. That there's an example of how delicate and resonant the language is. It's an invitation in to the resonating temple of your own heart space. We've all felt that when we're melting in love. Like you look at your children or a lover or an animal that you love, and there's this upwelling. There's something sweet. There's a tenderness. It's adorable. There's a nectar to it, and it's also there's a music to it. So, in English, we could say, "The one who is at play everywhere says, there's a space in the heart where everything meets. Come here if you want to find me. Mind, senses, soul, eternity, all are here. Are you here? Enter the bowl of vastness that is the heart. Listen to the song that is always resonating. Give yourself to it with total abandon. Quiet ecstasy is here, and a steady, regal sense of resting in a perfect spot. Once you know the way, the nature of attention will call you to return again and again. Answer that call, and again, and be saturated with knowing I belong here. I'm at home. Hridaya, Akasha, Nilim Aksha, Padma Sambhuta Madhika.
Poetry touches places in the human soul that nothing else touches. So clear.
It does, it touches. And the Sanskrit is like built to be poetic, where like one word might have so many meanings that you could go, well, you can read, if say there's 8 or so words in a verse and each word has 8 meanings, then you could take a trip through anything. And there's multiple levels of jokes. So Samputa is a hemispherical bowl or anything so shaped. The space between two bowls, and this is in the pointing to the sense of the heart as 2 resonating bowls. So there's like, we have an eternal heart that's always singing the song of Om, our personal form of Om. So we have a heart that's unbroken, that just humming on and on. And the name of it is Anahata, which means unbeaten, unbroken. So it's a steady hum. That's one heart. And we have a heart that's always broken. It's always aching. The lover's heart is always aching. Like you love somebody and then they walk out the door. It's like, oh, I miss you. And then I'm so glad you came back. So this is one of the meanings. So here, the space between 2 bowls, like the resonating field between 2 bowls that are, as they're musical. And it's a kind of sex. So it's, Samputa is a term from the Kama Sutra also that refers to a position of and sex.
What I love about the book is that there are all of these different kind of textures and feelings. You speak of longing, there's kind of sadness, there's even bits of fear and all the different aspects of human experience, right? And there's a verse, right? There's a verse for all of them that arrives that just speaks to some deeper place that is more spacious and liberated in all of the human experience, which I love.
Yeah, it's hard to think of an experience that's not mentioned in here,
Yeah.
which I've always felt. 'Cause I lived inside this text when I was. I don't call it a translation; I call it a version.
Mm.
Because I would do 5 or 10 or 20 translations where I'm really close to the text. But what like the spirit of the text wanted was to cut loose and really jump out and sing. And so I call it a version. And I like the other versions also. But here's one. So it starts with the word shoot, which is of all things Sanskrit for sneeze. Shoot adi. So it goes on. It lists ravenous with hunger, exploding with joy, sneezing uncontrollably, burning with desire, reeling with amazement, staggered by grief, fleeing from danger, desperately lost. Intensity awakened, wild attentiveness everywhere. Ride the shock wave inward to touch the great self, the power from which you arise. The Sanskrit name of the text is the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And Bhairava is that aspect of divine consciousnness that's terrifying and terrific, and also accepts our fear, our terror, as a sincerest form of prayer. So the text is always saying, right inside your fear, that vibrates, fear is a vibration. Right inside the terror is God that's listening to you. And it's also your own God consciousness. And that your own God consciousness is evoked irresistibly when you're in trouble, that God cannot resist being there. So right inside whatever trouble you're in is, if biologically you would say all your survival instincts, but the best in you rises to meet the emergency. And in Sanskrit, it's that this is divine consciousness.
This is like, the concept of in Tantra, like when Osho was asked, what is Tantra? He said, it's being a yes to everything, right? Like whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's doubt, whether it's shame, that we make room for it, we lean into it, we breathe in suffering rather than pushing it away. And in this case, it is all God. Yes.
Yeah, and that literally is true in Sanskrit, in the definition of the words, where Om is the source of all of the texts, of all the sutras and the Vedas. And Om means yes. Like originally, if you look at the definition of Om, it's like originally yes, like emphatic yes, like, oh yeah. And Om, the meaning of Om is as close to like when someone is going, hell yeah, and oh yeah. And like when in a football game, when there's 80,000 people there screaming when someone scores a touchdown, or soccer, that sound that arises of yay, that's Om. It's the universe saying yes to its own existence and expansion. And that primordial, exuberant energy is permeating our bodies. Like we're part of the universe, and every atom in our body and the space between our atoms is vibrating with this yes to existence.